The guns were introduced to Japan in 1543 when the Portuguese washed ashore on Tanegashima, the southern island of Japan. The lord of the island bought 2 guns from the Portuguese and ordered a swordsmith to make a gun by himself. As a result, it is said that Japan succeeded in domestically producing guns about a year after it was introduced to the island nations of the Far East. Since then, guns spread throughout Japan in a short period of time. Because Japan at that time was in the age of civil wars, guns became an extremely powerful weapon to defeat the enemy. And Japan became the world's largest producer and user of guns, surpassing any other European countries. Nevertheless, shortly thereafter, the Japanese abandoned their guns and returned to the era of swords. An unprecedented and incredible retrograde occurred in the history of weapons. Moreover, other Japanese technologies were slowly but surely advancing. In the West, on the other hand, there was a major shift from geographical discoveries to the era of imperialist powers. And in the meantime, not only the war against the colonies, but also many wars between Western countries were repeated. For example, the 30 Years' War in Germany, the Anglo-Dutch War, the War of 1812, and the Napoleonic. In other words, despite the fact that both the West and Japan entered the era of guns in the latter half of the 16th century, after that, the former went on the road to war by expanding the use of guns, and the latter went on the path to the peace with the abandonment or reduction of guns. So why did Japan go against the flow of history and throw away its guns? First of all, I would like to confirm historical facts. In 1600 AD, feudal lords from all over the country fought in 2 powers. This is called the Battle of Sekigahara. As a result, the East Army won, and Tokugawa Ieyasu, who led this army, took control of the whole country and opened the Tokugawa Shogunate in 1603. And in 1615, he destroyed the remaining Western forces in Osaka Castle. This ended the age of civil wars, and for about 250 years, until the Tokugawa Shogunate was destroyed in 1867, Japan continued to have a peaceful era with almost no war, and guns were abandoned with the end of the age of civil wars. It may be said that guns were no longer needed because of the peaceful times. However, some questions remain. The first one is why the samurai kept holding the sword even after the gun was abandoned. The next one is why Japan was able to maintain 250 years of peace after the age of civil wars. Edwin Perrin, who was an American essayist, wrote a book titled Giving Up the Gun, Japan's Reversion to the Sword. He gives 5 reasons why Japanese samurai abandoned their guns and returned to the sword. They are: 1. Especially senior samurai hated guns for fear of losing control of them, and the gun corps was organized by low-ranking samurai, who make up the majority of samurai. 2. 7 to 8% of Japan's population was a formidable samurai class. In addition, Japan was an island in the Far East, surrounded by the sea on all sides. Therefore, it was difficult for foreign countries to invade Japan, So Japan did not need guns to protect its own country. 3. For Japanese samurai, the sword was not only a weapon of battle, but also an expression of the samurai's pride. That is, the sword of the samurai. 4. Due to the Christian ban and seclusion policies that began in the Edo period, the customs and commerce brought from the West were disliked, and along with this, guns were also disliked. 5. The sword was considered to be a higher dignity weapon than the gun, and the Japanese respected the beauty of the sword itself and the beauty of how to use the sword. On the other hand, the gun did not fit the Japanese aesthetics and manners. From some of the items listed here, it can be seen that the Japanese samurai found a special value in the sword that the gun did not have. So even if the gun was thrown away, the sword was not thrown away. However, after reading these 5 reasons, didn't you think something was missing? The 5 explanations mentioned above were certainly some of the small reasons why Japanese samurai abandoned their guns. However, the main reason they were able to abandon their guns was obviously the end of the age of civil wars and 250 years of peace. Why didn't Perrin, the author of this book, touch on that premise? In fact, he had a strong motive for writing this book. He had the belief that the abolition of nuclear weapons was essential to human peace in the modern world, and wanted to find in past history that it was possible. So he probably wanted to give a historical example that the abandonment of guns brought about a long era of peace in Japan. Certainly, the Japanese gradually abandoned their guns from the early Edo period, so it may be that such a long period of peace continued. I have to admit that in a sense. But at the same time, we must not forget the major premise that guns are no longer needed because of the arrival of peaceful times. With the arrival of an era of peace, Japan no longer needed to mass murder with guns. So, why did Japan enjoy such a long period of peace that would forget the guns? Perrin also mentioned one of the reasons. That is the second of the 5 reasons listed above. As he says, Japan had a geographical condition that was difficult to invade as an island country in the Far East. In addition, there were many samurai classes, and it was considered tough to invade. Therefore, it was possible to maintain long peace without having to fight foreign invaders with guns or cannons. But Perrin did not mention the domestic reason why Japan was able to maintain long-term peace. The Tokugawa Shogunate, which was opened by Ieyasu, took away the power of daimyo or feudal lords for confronting the Tokugawa Shogunate due to its powerful and skillful national rule. Due to its strict monitoring system and management system, the daimyo were deprived of their rebellious energy and economic power. On the other hand, the shogunate centralized the economy by monopolizing a small amount of foreign trade through the seclusion policy. The reason why the guns were abandoned in Japan is probably because of the disarmament order issued by this strong shogunate. Those were the basic reasons for the long-term peace in Japan, for better or for worse. Opinions will differ on how to evaluate the strict governance and seclusion policy of the Tokugawa Shogunate. However, it is undeniable that, due to its skillful governance, a peaceful era has arrived that is free from the mass murder and devastation of the land caused by the war. Richer culture flourished in the long peace. For example, Edo, now Tokyo, had a population of over 1.2 million in 1746. There were about 700,000 people in London at that time, and in the town of Edo, the world's largest water network with a total length of 150 kilometers was laid. Almost 100% of samurai and more than 50% of ordinary people can read and write, and it is said that Japan's literacy rate at that time was the highest in the world. Many people associate traditional Japanese culture with ukiyo-e, kabuki, and haiku, and the Japanese food with sushi and tempura. The important thing is that all of these blossomed as common people's cultures during the Edo period. Kabuki, for example, was developed in the Edo period, and ordinary people could watch the play at a low price. Many ordinary people bought and enjoyed the actor printings depicting kabuki actor and the beauty printings. Prints called ukiyo-e made this possible. Kabuki actors became, so to speak, fashion leaders of the common people. Along with this, ukiyo-e became more popular and played an important source of information for the common people. Haiku was also born in the Edo period as the shortest poetic form in the world, and any ordinary person could become a poet. Edamame sushi in the Edo period had been sold at stalls since around 1780s, and was prosperous as a fast food for the common people. Due to the skillful and powerful rule of the Tokugawa Shogunate, Japan enjoyed a long and peaceful period. Efforts to improve the performance of the gun are no longer necessary, and even owning it became meaningless to the samurai. The land was not devastated by the war, and that is why such rich cultures of the common people were born, and they became the traditional cultures that represent Japan.